Alright folks, welcome to the Weekly Man Utd Show. I'm your host as always, Brad Pitt. Joined my regular co-host there, the fantastic Colm. How you doing, mate?
All good, how's things, mate?
All
Good?
good, no complaints. How could we have any complaints? We're going to do something that's totally unique. We're going to try to be happy on this on this podcast today.
It's turned into the happy podcast.
4 wins on the trot since Brentford. And I look at that Brentford game and we sat in this podcast, and it seems ridiculous now to talk about this, and I'm sure you're going to let me know that, about relegation. And such is the madness of Manchester United that you look at this and you're going, how can you go from relegation falling over 20 games to Peter Drury talking about after the game maybe being a discussion for a title? I don't think they are, but a team that could be taken serious in that discussion, how do you go from Arnautovic and Rabiot to Casemiro and Anthony? I mean, such is the ridiculous contrast. United can embarrass you really easy because you can put out a comment and a week later it looks ridiculous. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, football world is mad, and we've also got some encouraging news that the Glazers, considering, as we've been talking about on the pod today for weeks, some progress being made there with potential CEO. You've seen some other people come out with a guy now, as we quite vocal, and others. So, first of all, mate, last time we recorded was pre-Leicester. You were over at the Leicester game. What was that like?
Well, first of all, before we touch on that, I think it's important that we together speak about the times whenever we're wrong on this podcast. I've been wrong plenty of times. Obviously, I jumped on Carragher's bandwagon about Martinez, and I was completely wrong about that. I mean, the discussion about relegation now seems ridiculous, but even at the time, to me, it was ridiculous. So I think that the fact that we even spoke about that was embarrassing for both of us, because it was
we were never for me.
Well,
United could be back in that situation 4 weeks from now. You never know.
We'll never get relegated. But look, moving on to Leicester. Moving on to Leicester, what an unbelievable game to be at. I'm going again to Palace away this Sunday. Can't wait for it. But Leicester was just something special. I mean, obviously, the game, I would have liked to see us close it off, grab another goal, finish it. It was a bit cagey towards the end, but really, Leicester didn't show anything out of the ordinary. I don't even think, other than that one unbelievable save from James Maddison, he didn't really have much to do. And again, that's another thing we should touch on as well today, because people have been very quick to criticise De Gea and say, "Oh, we should never let Dean Henderson go." Look how many goals Dean Henderson shipped this season compared to David De Gea, and I think it's important that we touch on these things as well. Yes, De Gea, as a team, we were collectively terrible against Brighton and Brentford, and I think that can be put to one side now. Since then, we've turned the corner. There's a different camaraderie around this team at the moment. Something's just clicked, whether it's Ten Hag getting them in for that run that Sunday and joining in that run himself, whether it's the new signings, everything. Roy Keane touched on it last night. This is different. This is the Manchester United of old back again.
There's certainly some ingredients there. I want to touch on something you said there, because I've been thinking a lot about this for a while now, about David De Gea and his ability to play from the back. And, I'm just convinced that there are no really good goalkeeper footballers. And every time, if you watch football, you'll see the same mistake made by keepers all the time. I was watching the Old Firm game this weekend, Celtic Rangers, and the Rangers keeper done exactly what David De Gea did at Brentford. I watched Arsenal last week against Fulham, and Ramsdale, they get caught out playing from the back and they conceded a goal. Ramsdale gave the ball away yesterday to Bruno Fernandes, I can't remember, but Bruno Fernandes should have scored. And the reality is, playing from the back is extremely risky, because if you make one mistake, the team's on top of you and it's a goal. And if you make that mistake anywhere else on the pitch, no one even mentions it. But now you're sitting with a keeper who's being pressed, and when the game's in flow, you can get away with it because you can pass the ball and everything's moving. Whenever it's a set piece and the opposition is set to mark you, it's really hard to get out. It's really, really hard to do. And so I'm looking at this and going, there aren't any. I know people talk about Ederson and Alisson and everything, but they aren't. I mean, we're not talking about one keeper being Johan Cruyff and one keeper being, Titus Bramble. I mean, they're all more or less the same. I mean, they can all play football. And playing out from the back is also highly contingent upon the movement of the back four in front of you. Now, what you can really criticise De Gea is that Brentford game, right? I mean, that decision to put the ball to Eriksen was unbelievable, right? I mean, that's something you coach at under-7 football. It's just still defies belief. But this happens a lot, actually. And it's a really, really easy thing to get wrong. And then all the focus is on, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he's not good with his feet, he's not this. And like I got lynched last week for saying Dean Henderson was just a above average goalkeeper and his distribution was poor too. And we saw it again at the weekend. It was poor. But it's a hard skill to perfect, to be fair. And I think that it's,
I think it's dependent on the backline.
Yeah.
It's dependent on the backline because I've said this before. Maguire to me just instills panic in any backline that he's a part of. When he came on Saturday, it was like shaky. First thing he does is get yellow carded. And I think that's evident in that whenever De Gea is playing out from the back with Maguire, it just doesn't work. You watch De Gea's distribution this weekend at Liverpool. There was a ball I seen him pick out Anthony, and I honestly thought it was Paul Scholes in that. There's a difference, and I'm not saying that De Gea is unbelievable with the ball at his feet, but he's a lot better whenever the players in front of him are more comfortable on the ball. Whenever it's Harry Maguire, it's different. And unfortunately, Maguire is being found out for that now.
Maguire, I said this the other day, brings a nervousness to United's defending. And maybe it's muscle memory, PTSD, I don't know. Right? I also see a broken man in Harry Maguire. I also see a guy that doesn't believe he can ever play at the levels that you need to play at to be a Manchester United centre-back right now. I think for him, that move to Chelsea, if it had come off, would have been a good move for him. I think part of the problem is for Maguire now that his replacement is a cult hero with the fans. He's everything Maguire is, and I don't want to sit here and put the boot into Maguire. He's had that done enough. But there are some inescapable facts, and Luke Shaw is in exactly the same situation. We've seen the best of Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire. Neither of them are close to the best of Malacia and Martinez, and it's not just individual, it's as a team and how they support each other. I mean, I watched that Liverpool game, Colm, and the way Martinez and Malacia supported each other with Salah was incredible. Saka, brilliant young player, right? They've done it again at the weekend, and they're being asked questions in games where they've been asked these questions in previous games and come up with all the wrong answers. Ten Hag's adjusted his tactics to be much more practical with the team that he has. It shows. And the first thing you have to do in any team is be hard to beat before you're great to watch. Right? You make your team hard to beat. But secondly, if you have a crap defence, I don't care how good your midfielders are, and I don't care how good your forwards are, because when you concede, it saps morale, it saps confidence, it changes momentum, it changes everything. Doesn't matter if you've got a 40-goal, Newcastle have found this out. Lots of teams have found this out. You can't win anything without a good defence. That's the foundation that everything's built on, and it looks like Ten Hag's got that right.
I think I disagree with you on the point that we've seen the best of Harry Maguire, because we haven't. I think I've said this before on this podcast. I think there is a player in there. It might be hard for us to see. Maybe he will have to go elsewhere and play, but it's one of those things that I do think that there is a player there. We haven't seen it yet. From what we've seen of Maguire, we've seen inconsistency, panic sitting in on the ball, a captain who isn't really a captain because he can't lead on the pitch. It's not in his inventory to do so. From what it looks on the outside looking in, obviously we'd need to know what goes on the inside to see if he really is a good captain. But I don't think he is. And to be honest with you, I do think there's still a player there. And it worries me that if an injury to Martinez or an injury to Varane and Harry Maguire gets thrown back into it, because I think he needs eased back into it. So he's going to start against Sociedad on Thursday night. That's for certain. Let's see how he fares there. Let's see if we can get his confidence back. With Shaw, unfortunately, I agree with you. Like I think it's completely over for Luke Shaw. I don't think he'll ever make it at Manchester United again as a starting left back. Malacia just brings a tenacity. Like he just reminds me so much of Everton. Yeah. He's just so tenacious in everything he does. He, again, like we're celebrating, the defence are celebrating together. Talk about Dallo for a second. We caned him in this podcast for a few weeks. The kid's been unbelievable.
He has.
Proper good. And I think that, again, that's a confidence thing. So we have to understand that's the back four now. The back four's picking itself. And I think as well, Erik ten Hag has shown that, yes, he's saying Casemiro. And it was very important, if you listen to his pre-match comments about Anthony starting, where he said he knows the system. He's in, he can play. Casemiro's been there 2 weeks. Why is he not started yet? Because Scott McTominay's playing unbelievable. And that sets a precedent throughout the team to say, I don't care who you are, how big you are. If you play well and you perform on the pitch, you're going to start every game. And that's what Scott McTominay's done the last 2 weeks. Scott McTominay before that was shite. Perfectly honest, he was shite to start the season.
Well,
terrible.
You're right. Nah, mate, you're right. But I think there's a couple of things to unpack. To me, one of the most prescient commentaries on Harry Maguire, especially looking back, was Paul Merson when he signed. So I think there's horses for courses. I think there's certain players that are particularly good in certain systems at teams that suit them. And when you look at what Merson said, I'm sure you've seen it, but it is absolutely spot on, right? When you play Maguire up high, he gets rinsed in behind. I mean, he got booked right away at the weekend for more or less the same thing. He had caught out in possession on the halfway line, boom, he gets rinsed, right? And so he's great if you've got a low block and you have him in the box heading balls away and all that there, right? No problems. But at United, because they press, they play high, it's not suited to his skill set. I agree with you in the sense that there's certain psychological factors that aren't helping Maguire, and I just think a move would do him good at the right club. I agree with you, in the right club, the right team, there's a player there, but I care about how he plays for Manchester United. He doesn't exhibit the attributes you need to be a Manchester United captain, right? I mean, we don't get contracts United for a community outreach program. You have to earn it. This is supposed to be elite level athlete. It's cruel because there's decisions being made about people and about players that it can seem really harsh. But Ten Hag has to get these right, and he gave Maguire rope to hang himself. That's a bad analogy, but he gave Maguire the ability. He gave him a chance. He said, you're going to play the first few games, you're my captain, you have to play your way out of the team. Now he's got to play his way in. And what I like when you talk about McTominay there, and it's a good example, I want to see Casemiro too, but one of the things at Manchester United that's been lacking over the years, Colm, is consequences for failure, and the fact that winning football games isn't the most important thing. Now winning football games is the most important thing at the football club, and that's what gets rewarded, how you play on a pitch. And so now whoever starts on Thursday, it's not like it was in the past where you were rotating mediocrity because whoever played didn't play well, and then you were rotating them out and you were hoping to find a solution. Now it's about, if you play on Thursday, going through the motions is not an option. You must make sure you come out, bust your balls, and do everything you can to get back in that team. Because if I'm Luke Shaw, I'm thinking World Cup. If I'm Harry Maguire, I'm thinking World Cup, going, how do I get back in this team? How do I get back in this team? I mean, when you look at the before and after, when you look at what happened at Brentford, I mean, and what's happened since, it's not just the individual performance of Malacia Martinez and the back four, it's the results, it's the way the team is playing. And for me, it's like, you know, Alex Telles came in and pushed Luke Shaw, wasn't a crowd favourite. Malacia is a crowd favourite now. You know, and this is the situation for Wan-Bissaka. You know, where are you getting back in that team, son? All these players that are going to play on Thursday will have to play the best game they've played at United to get even consideration for Palace, which is a very difficult game. So he was right to keep McTominay in the team, because you have to reward that. If you're playing well and you take somebody out because you want to put your favourite guy in, that sends a terrible message to players. And he's got it bang on with Ronaldo too. By the way, Cristiano Ronaldo's body language is probably the best it's ever been at United.
I think that's also because we're winning games now, and I think it's also because the team looks good. Ronaldo's not stupid. Ronaldo understands. You've seen his reaction when Anthony scores.
Yeah.
He understands football. He understands that yes, he is still, you see him throwing his arms whenever things don't go his way. That's just him. You have to take that with Ronaldo. That's how he plays football. That's why he is who he is. You can't change that about him. And I think, ultimately for the rest of the season, I don't even know if he'll stay the rest of the season. I think maybe January he leaves, depending on how well we're doing. I think there's a possibility he leaves in January, but even if he doesn't and he stays for the year, he's going to have to realise that he's not going to start every game. I actually did think he would have started on Sunday, to be honest with you. I didn't think Anthony would have been thrown in at the deep end like he was, and obviously he done really well. But, Rashford now, again, he's another player we need to speak about. Rashford's turned it on the past couple of weeks. I mean, he was unbelievable this weekend. It was like Rashford of old whenever we first seen him, and that's what we need again. Rashford has missed out on that because, again, I think it's confidence issues over the past couple of years. Yeah. He hasn't got a run of games. He hasn't got things going his way. Now it is. Let's see how good he can actually be. Martial coming back. How good can Martial be when he's happy playing football?
But see, one of the things you're seeing, negativity and positivity in your rate spreads like wildfire, right? Once you have that toxic vibe in the dressing room, it affects everyone. Now you're seeing the opposite. Now you're seeing team spirit spread throughout the team. Now you're seeing the group setting is completely changed from being one of complete disillusionment and complete disconnection from the football club to if you want to play for this football club, you have to play to your skin, right? And one of the things you get with someone like Lisandro Martinez, he is such a competitive guy that going through the motions is not an option. And that affects everybody around you, right? So you see these fist bumps, you see they're taking pride in their performance, they're taking pride in the result, they're desperate to win. And that's all we ever ask. Look, United will lose games this season, they shouldn't. They'll have bad performances, they'll get found out in some games, and United fans will complain, and we'll all complain. But you have to look at it over the course of a season. If Ten Hag gets United in the top four, and if he gets United into a position next summer, where they only need 2 or 3 additions because the vast majority of the signings have worked out, Ten Hag's done an exceptional job, in my opinion. Because where United were after Brentford was a serious reality check. And the football club also had to recognise that by adjusting their budget and their ambition, which clearly changed. They added another 100 odd million to the budget after Brentford. Had to happen. So to me, I think there's so many things that are moving in the right direction. Obviously, we'll get to the potential sale of the football club in a bit. I think they've had a good window. United were never going to address all their problems in one window. So we've always talked about managers needing 3-4 windows, right? Well, we were talking 3 years when Ten Hag came in, and Ranić rightfully said if you do it right within 3, you could do it in over 3 windows. So now we're talking about possibly by next summer, if everything goes according to plan. That can happen between now and then, of course. Then all of a sudden we're seeing a football club that looks like it's heading in the right direction, and we've been deprived of this for so long. The VAR controversy yesterday is a joke, but it's an illustration of just how much Manchester United winning games bothers people, and we'll get that in a minute. But I must say, it feels great to be watching all the outrage online.
It is. I think that's part and parcel of being a Manchester United fan. Like we've said it before again on this podcast about how there's a media frenzy about everything that goes on at Manchester United, and because right now that there's nothing that they can attack in terms of the team, the performance on the pitch. Now it's VAR. Now it's going to be something to do with, I don't know, something that's going on behind the scenes. There's things just made up at this football club constantly because that's the only way of attacking Manchester United. And I think as well, it's a testament to the players on the pitch that there's nothing else at the moment that can be attacked. Those last 4 performances have been the best that we've probably seen in the past 3 years, I'd say. Probably since Solskjaer went and beat Spurs away. Was that the last game that we really seen the Solskjaer type performance? I think it maybe was. But from what we've seen, it's been so few and far between games where you can actually be happy about being a Manchester United fan. Like, yourself, there was games we were looking forward. You weren't even looking forward to. You knew you were going to get beat. You knew there was a good chance you were going to draw. You were going to get beat. It was shocking for about 18 months there.
I really wasn't, like, even towards the end of last season, I didn't even watch the Brighton game. I actually recorded it, and someone thankfully told me to score. I think I was coaching kids that day or something, I can't remember. And I was like, I'm not even going to watch this. And I've never done that. I mean, I will watch United no matter what. But it was just genuinely too painful to watch. Now, we've been here before as United fans. I mean, I remember the 80s. I remember some disastrous times. I remember some disastrous results. You know, who could forget the 6-1 against Spurs? So we've sat through these before, but this was just so painful because there was no positives. It was like, this is such a serious situation, and I don't know how it gets fixed.
But do you think it's us settling for mediocrity that you've said there 10 minutes ago about the fact that, you know, we should be happy if we get top 4? Why not take Peter Drury's line of thinking and say, you know what, we could be title contenders. This team have turned it on. 2 losses don't change a whole season. 2 losses at the start of the season have set us up for something much better because the team looks like an actual team since that. Maybe that was the best thing that happened to us. Look at some of the other teams in the league. I truthfully think at the moment I would fancy us at home to the City. We've already beat Liverpool at home. I would fancy us at home to the City at the moment. And that's not me getting ahead of myself. I need to obviously be a realist at the same time. But I genuinely think that we have the ability now to win those big games. Whereas before, you know, it wasn't a possibility.
Well, we talked on the show a couple of weeks ago about I can't look at a single Premier League fixture and see United can win, because that's how low my expectations. Now we're sitting here saying we'll beat City and win the league. It's not about accepting mediocrity. It's not about any of that. I recognise that to climb Mount Everest, you can't grow wings and get there just because you're the best climber in the world. You have to climb that step by step by step, and you have to respect the process. City are still miles ahead of United in every capacity. I mean, United could beat them on a given game, I have no doubt about that, but over 38 games, will United win enough games? I don't even think that's fair to expect that of United right now. I think that, like I said, they didn't address all their problems in one window. They're moving in the right direction right now. I like where they're going, but realistically, to compete with a Manchester City, to have the depth, for Ten Hag's tactics to be completely integrated, for him to have the players to pull off exactly how he wants to play. I mean, if you look at Klopp's first season, you look at Guardiola's first season, and Guardiola was getting criticised in his first season heavily. Klopp finished 8th, I know he took over in October. This type of thing takes time. And as great as things are, like I said, United will lose games this season. They're going to lose games they shouldn't. They're going to have bad performances. Martinez will make a mistake, and all of a sudden, all these arseholes that are desperate to criticise him, right, will come out and say, "See, I told you so." They won't give him any credit when he plays well. They'll disappear. But they'll wait until he makes a mistake. And they'll all come out and they'll look at the guy Lineker's, and also bring it up, and they'll go, look. Because that's what... See, you see this now with TalkSport, right? I'm convinced there's somebody in the production room calling in TalkSport and saying, let's get the most ridiculous Manchester United fan on the phone. We'll bang it on Twitter, and we'll get loads of wound up Man United fans interacting with this. I'm convinced that's what happens. I mean, because there's a guy on today, apparently too much focus on the Glazers. That's scripted bullshit, right? There's no fan calling in saying that. That's just nonsense, right? And so, United, like, I mean, we look at this VAR situation. It wasn't even a wrong decision. It was a free kick. He comes
free kick all day.
He comes, and then I hear, oh, maybe he was a little bit pregnant or was pregnant. Look, sorry that you think it's soft. Oh, come on, just let them have it. It's Arsenal. Give them a goal. It's against Man United. I hate Man United. I want them to lose so bad. Now, where was this outrage when McTominay was son? Where was this outrage with Rodri at Goodison Park last season? Right? I mean, West Ham goal against the Chelsea goal at West Ham has barely been mentioned. And the focus is on a correct decision. I mean, basically the argument is give Arsenal one free foul so they can score. Right?
It's a foul all day.
Of course it's a foul. He comes through the back of him, doesn't even touch the ball. So if the referee gets it wrong and they score a goal, the biggest advantage you can get in football is something that assists you in a goal, right? If you find out in the process that you acquired an unfair advantage to score a goal, that's the whole point of VAR. Not, it has to be, it's of course a clear and obvious error. It's a free kick. The goal shouldn't count. You should not be 1-0 up. You committed a foul in the process to score a goal. Now, what was it? Lindelof, I think it was at West Brom. Ball comes in, grabs him, right? Scores that header, right? No free kick. Now, the fans were rightfully upset over it, right? So, if you want to have a wider discussion about the efficacy of VAR, do that. But you can't turn around and pick, well, I don't like it because of this, or I don't like it because of that. I mean, United were knocked out of the FA Cup last year by Middlesbrough, by the most blatant handball you ever seen in your life, and somehow it wasn't given. And he acquired an advantage and scored a goal.
But I think with VAR, you have to be all in or all out. So, for example, these decisions are well and good, but it has to be consistent. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people, is the consistency with VAR just isn't there. And that's the nature of having something like VAR. However, the ironic thing about it is that VAR is there to eliminate human error, but there's still human error with VAR. So that's the difference on it.
The problem is, mate, a lot of football is subjective. You very rarely get objective decisions. Like a corner is an objective decision, right? Hits off somebody, it goes out throwing. But whenever you're for a game, a fast-flowing game, and you're slowing it down to tiny increments, then you can pretty much find fault anywhere. Anywhere. You can find fault. Like that goal that was disallowed for Brighton yesterday. Alexis McAllister. Jesus, what a goal. Right? And I can see your argument. Let it go because it's such a great goal. Right? But I sympathise with referees in this situation. I mean, do we turn around and say, well, I'm going to let the great goals go. I'm going to let the decisive ones go. Or, we'll give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker. Well, what does that even mean? What's the threshold? Is it an inch, a yard, 2 yards, half a yard? What I mean, one guy
that's what
said,
I mean. See this benefit.
but that's what I'm saying is there's just so much subjectivity in it. It's really difficult to get a decision that two people won't disagree over.
I know a lot of people will probably cane me for this, but I would prefer if VAR wasn't in football. I prefer the human error element. Made it more exciting. See this not being able to celebrate a goal.
I know.
Because you don't know if it's going to be a goal or not, and a player's hesitant, and then they're afterwards celebrating. It's all just a complete shambles. VAR to me needs to be black and white, or else it needs to be no more. And I preferred football when there was that human error element to it, when maybe there was referees' decisions going against United some weeks, because there was decisions went for you and decisions went against you. Obviously, it's still the same with VAR, but it just seems to be that you don't know what decision you're going to get with VAR, because 1 week you get it and 1 week you don't, so there's no consistency.
I think where technology has a role in football is like goal line technology, right?
Yeah.
That is straightforward. No question about it, that has made the game better. And I initially was completely in favour of VAR, but now I see it as, I'm with you. I'm like, look, you know what? I accept, because we was brought in to eliminate things like the Thierry Henry situation, right? Where I completely understand that, right? And those are bad decisions, and they shouldn't happen at the highest level. But trying to turn football into the NFL, stop, start, is killing the abstract beauty of football, because you're breaking it down to these incremental parts. And it's taking the joy out of it. I mean, you're sitting there, you're scoring a goal, which is the most climactic thing in the game. And you're, should be happy. And then 3 minutes later, when the referee says goal, the moment's gone. It doesn't feel anything like it did when it happened. And so I look at this and I'm thinking, it sort of reminds me of going and looking at a Vincent van Gogh picture and breaking it down to pieces instead of just admiring its complete beauty and saying, you know what, you don't need to break beautiful things down and explain them bit by bit, just appreciate the beauty that it is. And I think that I know people will argue VAR is used better on the continent and all that, or it possibly is. But right now, do I think it's added a net benefit to football? I'm going to say no. Now, admittedly, Arsenal scored yesterday without VAR, right? But I'll take that over the course of a season because I still think you end up with a better spectacle.
Definitely, I think obviously as well we're going to be critical of VAR points this season, and we're not going to be critical, and that's just the way it goes. It swings and rounds about. And honestly, to be honest with you, VAR to us hasn't really been beneficial, other than that one decision there at the weekend where it stops their goal. So for us this season, that's really the only decision we've got. And it was clear and obvious that's an error. So how can people say it's not? And that's the bit where it needs to be taken away from. Obviously, it has to be like a black and white decision. It needs to be quicker, and that's it. I think the referee taking so long at the weekend, that should be in his ear straight away to say, look, it's a foul, that's it. You don't even need to go watch that because it's a foul. Why should the referee have to go if someone's already told him it's a foul? And that's where it's used differently on the continent. You know, on the continent now, at the beginning, they were going to watch on the screen at the side of the pitch, but now it's just in their ear, yep, and that's it, done, dusted.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it's much to the game. I also touched on something. I want to go back to the match of the weekend about Ronaldo, and there's times when he's looked like, you know, being on the United bench is the worst place, is the last place he wants to be. But I have to be honest, his body language, even against Liverpool when United scored, and then when he came on the field, his desperation to score, to force himself back in that team. That's really healthy, I think. And so I think I don't have a problem. I also disagree and thought about this a lot, that he would ruin his legacy had he left. He wouldn't have. He would have been forgiven over in a year or two past. People would have forgotten about it. There's no question. But this version of Ronaldo is, to me, a massive benefit to this football club.
I agree, and see, to be honest, a lot of people probably, I haven't watched the match back since I was at it at Leicester, but when he came on to me, he looked as if he was in the game. He looked as if he benefited us when he came on against Liverpool. When he came on, as you say, he wanted to score. He showed something different. He showed a different side to him that maybe we haven't seen this season yet. Probably didn't really see much of that last season because he was in the team every week. Now he wants to force his way back into the team. He can benefit us. He can benefit players like Anthony, who can learn off him. He can benefit Rashford. There's definitely games where Ronaldo's going to start this season. There's going to be games where he's going to get the Shepherds and he's going to be on the bench and he's going to have to live with it.
Especially if Rashford's done his hamstring.
Again, that's another thing. We don't know if he has or if he hasn't. We don't know how long Martial's going to be out injured for. We think he might be back on Thursday. I don't know. So there's so many opportunities for Ronaldo this season. And if he is going to play, maybe it is that we are going to have to change our game plan when Ronaldo plays. Because I know Ten Hag said in his press conference that Ronaldo can press and Ronaldo can do this. I personally don't think Ronaldo can. So it might well be that we have to change. And again, you know, God forbid we lose that game. Everyone will be on Ronaldo's back to say that it's Ronaldo's fault, and I think that just comes with the territory of being Ronaldo this season at United. But another one's Fred, for example. Fred needs to push himself into this team to play alongside Casemiro. He starts at Brazil. Fred's massively underrated for us. Everyone gets on Fred's back. A lot of people just are straight down Fred's throat. When Fred plays higher up the pitch, he's an asset to this football club. He showed that when Rangnick played him further forward. I think, how many goals did he get? Maybe 6, 7 towards the end of the season when he played him further forward. He does it for Brazil every game. He plays alongside Casemiro and he's great in there. So why can he not do it for Manchester United? Again, he's another one that needs to force his way into the team, and it's going to be tough. But the best piece of business that this football club done was Christian Eriksen.
Nice,
and I was unsure of it at the beginning. I mean, this guy is running around. Why could the board not have done this 5 years ago?
I know they did.
It's just Manchester United, isn't it? But one of these things, like, he's unbelievable. What he's doing on the pitch at the moment is honestly phenomenal. He is just everyone. I think, like me personally, I wasn't too sure if he was going to be able to do it. Again, I wasn't too sure after seeing him what happened, if he was ever going to be that player again. Oh my God, everything he's doing at the moment is unbelievable. So as long as that continues, it's great because he's such an asset for us on the pitch.
Oh mate, his attitude, his body language, everything is just he's just the type of guy to dream to have. He's almost another Juan Mata in that sense, where, you know, you want him to marry your daughter. And I'm looking at Eriksen and I'm going, 3 games in a week, a year after you've had this horrible heart issue, and your best game of the three was the third one against Arsenal. Played through the lines beautiful. They didn't know what to do with him. They couldn't track him. He was finding space everywhere.
But I think it also allows Bruno to play a different game.
Well, it does. But man, I think this is also Fred's problem. Because for Fred to play further forward, he has to take either Bruno Fernandes's place or Eriksen, and the contrast is massive. And you also said something earlier in this podcast, which he's mentioning. Ten Hag more or less knows his best 8 or 9, right? And I think there's 1 or 2 positions he's not settled on 100%. And you were saying the team picks it, the back four picks itself. I think the team more or less picks itself right now. I expected he would drop Elanga at the weekend because Elanga's been probably the least impressive of all the players where you could say he's nailed down his position. And I didn't think they'd start Ronaldo because I thought they're going to want to press Arsenal's back four and they're very quick. So, that would be a weakness. And you can't let them get into that second line of transition because they can hurt you. Right, so I expected that United would press them, especially at back four, and especially after what they did against Fulham, where they shows vulnerability back there. They're a team with a glass jaw, right? They have fantastic talent. They're lovely to watch, but every top team should beat them because of their weaknesses is still the same. I'm so glad they could not get Lisandro Martinez because he would have given them much needed bait that they badly need. And I'm telling you right now, that game yesterday, United don't win that game if that game had come 2 weeks ago. Because Rashford straight through on goal, his confidence is starting to grow. Doesn't take that chance if he doesn't take the one against Liverpool, right? Other positions, other players with confidence, they're starting to grow now, starting to believe in themselves. I think, and the way Ten Hag has adjusted his tactics to be more pragmatic shows what a top manager he is. And we're talking about previous managers. How long did it take him to work out who their best 11 was? How many times did we see rotation because of mediocrity, because no one was locking down a position? We don't see it anymore. If you're sitting on this bench, this Manchester United team, you've got 2 choices. You play your way in or you leave. That's exactly what should have happened. We wanted Maguire dropped for a longest time. No.
But then what happens with the captaincy here? So you're in a catch-22 situation because Maguire comes on at the weekend, he takes the armband off Bruno. First thing he does is he clatters Jesus. Yes, it's a bad ball from Casemiro, but at the end of the day, Harry Maguire's found out of position almost and ends up with a yellow card instantaneously from he comes on.
Let me ask you this, mate. Do you think United players respect Maguire as their captain? I don't.
I don't know.
I think so.
I can't answer it. I don't know. I truthfully don't know. But I think if they don't, then Ten Hag, he's shown already he's got the cojones to make decisions. Make another big decision. Do it now. Stamp your authority on the squad. Give it to Bruno. Give it to someone who's going to play every week. Because right now we're looking at it and it doesn't look as if Maguire's going to play every week. Why is he your captain?
United have had captains in the past that have been out injured, for months. And so, King was out injured for 8 months. They've had players where this isn't an
injury. This is you've been dropped. You know what I mean? It's not.
No, I know, but the point is that there's been an acting captain on the pitch. Someone's taken the armband. If Maguire's sitting on the bench for the vast majority of the season, or 3/4 of it, he's not. He's someone else is a de facto captain anyway. It's more a symbolic thing than anything else. He's not really. Yeah, you get the armband, but you don't get the respect. You don't lead your team. You aren't really a captain. And so, I think when you look at some of the players in that United team, I think Bruno Fernandes gets more respect from his peers.
But do you not think then, because what you've just told me, you've said that you don't think the players fancy Maguire as captain, you don't think that they have respect for him?
I don't know, I'm just guessing.
No, sorry, again, I'm just saying, but right, so should Ten Hag not read the room and say the best decision I can make for this football club right now, they instill this into this squad and let them know that I'm the manager, I make the decisions, sometimes I get things wrong too, because at the start of the season he came out and he backed Maguire as his captain. Should he not say to the squad, you know what, change of plan here. That's the captain. Does that not set another something on the Maguire that says he needs to play his way back into the team? What's the benefit? You're going to ask me?
He already knows he has to play his way back in the team. I don't know if taking the captaincy of him would change much. The question is, what's the cost benefit of that decision? Who benefits and what's the cost?
But the benefits are there for all to see. Just like the way he hasn't played Ronaldo.
What would change? I don't know, man. I'm
there's a reaction amongst the squad to say, well, look, 1 second, Ten Hag doesn't mess about here. That's it.
Shouldn't that be obvious by now? Shouldn't that be obvious by now? Because, I mean, take a look at Ronaldo. He's benched Ronaldo. He's benched Maguire, who is the captain. He's benched Luke Shaw.
But these are decisions he's made. So my point is that Ten Hag was the one that made the decision to keep Maguire captain. To have that humility about you to say to the team, you know what, I did make a mistake keeping Harry Maguire captain.
But he more or less said that anyway. By leaving
but he said it, but he hasn't acted on it.
But the thing is, if Maguire's not playing and someone else is taking that captaincy, that armband, if Maguire plays his way back into the team and he plays, keep the armband. No,
but again,
but if he's not playing, he's not the captain anyway.
But is Maguire a better captain than Bruno Fernandes for you?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think he's a better captain, but I'm not sure Bruno Fernandes is the best captain either. And I honestly think that this is symbolic. Right? What matters is who leads on the pitch. You know, United once had Brian Robson and Roy Keane on the pitch. Roy Keane wasn't the captain when Brian Robson was there, but he was a de facto, or he was another captain. You know, so that leadership doesn't necessarily come from the guy that wears the armband. And I don't know what benefit it would be to the squad at this point to turn around and further humiliate Maguire and say, I'm stripping you the captaincy now. I know you're not getting back in the team. I'm going to take that captaincy off you. And because the rest of the players don't really look at him as a captain anyway. And so I would think, what benefit does that provide to the group? You know, you know how lads work, right? And how group dynamics work. Go back to when you were in school. And you were in a classroom, you had a good idea of everyone's personality, of the 15, 20 boys in your class. And they were all defined differently. There was the shy one, there was the funny ones, there was the confident ones, there were all of those. And soon enough, the dynamic would emerge of who the leaders of that group were. They weren't given that role, they assumed it, they took it. And that's exactly the same as what happens in the dressing room. The leaders emerge. You don't pick them. They pick them. They pick themselves. You pick the leaders based on their personalities, not as a reward or not as demand. So
I understand.
If you wear an armband or not, that really doesn't mean much in terms.
I understand
of
what
how
you're
you
saying.
Inspire those around you,
but there has to be some sort of give and take with a club captain sitting on the bench every week. He's the club captain. He's the one that has to do other things that we don't see as fans in the background that he has to do. Why is he still the club captain? If he's not up to that standard. He's not at the standard of being a club captain. He's never been the standard of being a club captain. And that's probably his biggest downfall, was that he was thrust into that position. So why not take that responsibility off him to give him the peace of mind when he comes back in, that it's less of a daunting prospect if he can't make his way back in?
I think it would cost him endorsements. I think it would cost him, Manchester United captain is a great selling point for your marketing, your merchandise company and all that. I don't think it helps him at all.
I don't know if you're saying a Manchester United captain and sat on the bench for 38 games this season, you know what I mean? So
yeah, but he only sat on the bench the last few weeks. Those endorsement deals will be years old. So I mean, I don't think it helps him at all. But anyway, we can agree to disagree on that. As far as the Glazers selling, right, and we'll get to questions on that in a minute. There's been some momentum on this over the last few weeks. One of the things I do want to point out, mind you, is the hubris of Tariq Panja and the New York Times, who are consistently wrong all the time, and their hubris, right? So a while ago, Tariq Panja dismissed the whole nonsense of Manchester United being sold as nothing more than a firestorm as a result of Elon Musk's tweet. First of all, it was so disrespectful to the other journalists that have worked so hard on this. He had no idea what he was talking about, completely clueless, done no homework, because if he did, he never would have said that. It was so disrespectful to other people. And the exceptional journalists that have worked really hard to get really credible, hard information that is multi-sourced by highly credible people. So I wonder how Tariq's feeling right now. And the New York Times, who took out an ad here, by the way, and defined themselves as the truth, the pure nauseating arrogance of that, right? So it was important that I said that. I like Tariq in other aspects, but he's bang wrong here, and he owes some people an apology. I got some grief over that article coming out, and it just stank of snobbery, right? We will tell you what goes on in the world. We'll not have any of you out there breaking stories or telling. Well, we define what is true and what isn't. Well, there's a book out there about the New York Times being wrong on every major historical event for over the last 100 years. They never publish retractions. So anyway, as for the Glazers, as I've been saying, and I said this on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, the information that I have that they are soliciting offers for this football club is the best information on any story I've ever been given on Manchester United in 10 years, right? And the multi-source, the credibility of those sources, and I was still getting it up until a couple of days ago. You know, I was talking to people at the 1958 group a couple of days ago, telling them I'm still getting really strong information that this football club is in the process of trying to be sold. Now, that doesn't mean it will be sold. It means that they're out there soliciting offers. I think it will get sold because I don't think United will be short on offers, but I think it's also a football club that will get a deluge of offers. Whatever the Glazers spent is around an hour to any potential billionaire buying Manchester United, and would certainly be added to the debt. And what I'm told is any offer has to include paying off the debt. So it has to be 3.75 billion, you know, circa that number, plus debt, plus share options, right?
What's the debt amount to?
It's about 600 million. So it depends. We haven't seen the latest public figures, public accounts. Depends what was loaded onto the debt for the spend and all that there. Obviously, the Glazers needed to sustain the asset, right? But and also the protests. Manchester United fans are impeccable, right? In 1958, all those United fans that have been so vocal. I mean, the club in many ways don't deserve those fans. And the coordinated efforts from United to try to dull those protests by let them take down the flags, because the optics on it are horrible. They know that, which is why they didn't do it this weekend. I'm sure of that. You know, it's actually better PR to watch them make them take them down, right? You know, we're sitting there getting these nauseating clips from the Glazers about Manchester United, how important they are to the community and how important fans are and all this. How dare you? You know, what it means to be a Buccaneers fan. So the Glazers, they didn't become benevolent and give United money this summer. That's Manchester United's money. That's the football club's money, right? It should have been there June 1st, right? It should have been there the minute they signed Ten Hag, not panic. So, as Gary Neville's pointed out, Mike Keegan's pointed out, there's a lot of momentum on this, and there's still, you know, from what I'm being told, the Glazers are still looking to sell Manchester United, and that the fact that United haven't denied that is also very telling. They are under obligation to deny that if there's no truth in it, and they didn't. They did, however, make the effort of denying that they were selling off future revenues, right? But yet lost their tongue when it came to everything else, which is telling. So it's more telling what they didn't say than what they did say. So very, very encouraging, although my suspicion is United are going to end up in some petrol state. Now, there's talks of people wanting the football club from Dubai. Just because they're from Dubai doesn't make them bad people. It matters what they do with their life and where the source of money comes from. Now, people are going to have their own opinions on this, and that's up to them. Me personally, I don't want to see that happen. I want to see United be bought by someone like Jim Ratcliffe, who I think would be someone that understands what it means to be a Manchester United fan and what values this club should exhibit. So I'm quite confident in the information that I have that it's commensurate with what Mike Keegan said.
Well, we get on to some questions. Most of them are actually around the takeover of the club potential takeover. So I think some of them I'll try and get ones that we haven't. So first of all, what did you think of Anthony's debut and how he handled the pressure? Personally, I think Anthony was very good. I think it was still raw. You could see that he was thrown in at the deep end. There was one stage he slide tackled McTominay, I think, as well. It was just a breakdown in communication, but he looked good. I mean, he got his goal. Happy to see it. I think it was the right decision to take him off after 16 minutes. I think he coped with the pressure fine. And I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll see him grow into himself more and become more at home. And I think that's only just going to happen with time.
Yeah, look, I mean, you score in your debut against Arsenal in a tight game. You open the score and it couldn't go any better than that. That'll help his confidence. He hadn't played in a couple of weeks, I understand. So it was understandable that in the Premier League is so fast. So it was understandable that he didn't finish the game. I felt that he would start over Elanga. And look, I think he had an okay game. You know, I think add in the goal, he had a good game, but everything else was okay. You know, I'm excited by the kid. Really like what he's bringing to a football club, and I think he'll be an exceptional signing. That first goal will help him immensely. Really eerie, similar to Anthony Martial's debut.
Yeah, almost just the same. Another one from Ryan Dizit. He says, are there any updates on Bernard Mendy or Tuanzebe, where they are at the moment and why they haven't been involved at all?
What was the first one?
Bernard Mendy and Tuanzebe.
Are you talking about Mendy?
No, he's talking about Dion Bernard.
Oh, Deshaun Bernard, okay.
Yeah.
From you team, I honestly, I haven't asked me. I have no idea. But it is a bizarre situation in Axel Tuanzebe's. I remember Villa really wanted to keep him last year.
Yeah.
I think that I would be concerned that he's sitting, 24 now?
Yeah, 20.
Yeah. At this point, you're supposed to have an established career. And to me, the fact that he's still there is extremely telling. You know, just sometimes these kids don't work out. You know, I remember wanting Ryan Tunnicliffe so badly to get promoted in the United's first team and be a first team. I don't even know if he's still playing football right now. But it was back at the time when United were playing cleverly and everything else, and I wanted him in the first team. I thought this is an exceptional young player. I thought about him whenever James Garner happened. I was like, I didn't want Garner to be sold, but I also didn't want Ryan Tunnicliffe to be sold because I thought he was going to be an exceptional talent. And I think that it was telling to me that clearly Ten Hag didn't rate James Garner because given his skill set, he was an obvious player that should have played in one of those first two games, given United hadn't got that type of player. So, and it's also, why didn't Forest come back in and try to buy him?
It's strange circumstance, but see, to be honest, I'm happy that there's a buyback clause there and that there is a possibility that we could get him back if he turns out to be good. Whether he does or not, I don't even know if he's able to break his way into that Everton midfield. I mean, that's a tough midfield to break into. He would have had more opportunities at Forest had he went there, I think. So you don't know what way it's going to end up there.
Yeah.
Another one from James Matthews. Have we heard anything regarding Brandon Williams' injury and how long he might be out for? Wasn't expecting him to be in the squad list, but he's been out since pre-season and we've heard nothing on
him. I don't want to talk about Brandon Williams in terms of his injury. I don't know. I'd rather let him have some privacy on that. As far as Brandon Williams leaving the football club goes, look, Southampton wanted him last season, and the deal would have been take him on loan, pay his wages, and he would have been, I think, the highest paid player at Southampton if they had done that. Carl Anka was talking about this on the fantastic Talk of the Devils podcast, and that's where I got that information from, by the way, so strongly suggest you listen to that. That was a few weeks ago. They did that podcast, so I think that's part of the problem why Brandon Williams is still at Manchester United, because one, no club wants to pay his wages, given how I'm sure if United are going to send him out and don't have to subsidise it, and two, part of me wonders if United might play him at right back ahead of Wan-Bissaka when he's fit.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely an opportunity to do that, isn't it? And I think he's probably a better option at right back than Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka just offers you nothing going forward. Great defensively, you know, maybe could it be that Wan-Bissaka's, I don't know, I think he's too much of a headless chicken, but could he be moved into a centre back as part of a three? Could he be retrained as a centre half? Because defensively, the guy's unbelievable. He's very, very good defensively.
He's Trent Alexander-Arnold turned inside out.
He actually is. That's it. Exactly. So it's bizarre.
If them two had a baby, you get the best. You get Cafu.
You could set that up too. You're the man to know. Ricky says, do you think that we have enough to challenge for the league? He does. The standard is nothing special this year, in his opinion.
I don't know about that. I would say that City are so far ahead of everyone that you still take points off them. In my opinion, they should have lost against Villa at the weekend. Newcastle took points off them, 3 each. But Haaland is just a freak.
He is a freak, to be honest.
All his goals are coming from inside the 6-yard box. And the people who don't play football can watch that and go, I could do that. But the anticipation, right, the movement, his physicality, he knows he's just such a frightening player. Now, the one thing about Haaland that is an X factor is he has a lot of injuries. And I think he missed up to 40% of Dortmund's games with injuries.
Yeah, he did.
So there's no way he stays fit the entire season, right? Julian Alvarez is a good wee striker. He's scored 3 goals already. But is he? I think he's more Gabby Jesus than anyone. But that would be, if I was a City fan, the one concern is you've now set that team up to play through Haaland. You know, they got rid of Sterling and everything else. Can you adjust when he's not there, when he's injured, to the same level?
We'll end it on this one. Actually, before we end it, I want to throw one out there to you. We've seen Wolves potentially signing Diego Costa. Would you take him at United for a season?
Nah.
I would. As a backup number 9 for a game where you need someone to throw themselves about, why not?
Do they not have that with Ronaldo right now, though?
Not really. Ronaldo isn't going to throw himself about like Diego Costa will. He also wouldn't accept playing 10 minutes here or there if we're chasing a goal at the end of a game. Whereas I think Diego Costa accepts that. So that's one I definitely would take. 5 or 6
years ago, but nah.
Nah, I still would. Right. Last question. Peter Gillespie says, what date and month do you think we will be confirmed champions? End of February, early March for him.
Is that a serious question?
I'm going to throw it out there and say March. I'm with Peter Gillespie on this. We're going to be champions this year. Bring it back to Old Trafford. Champions elect.
There's more chance of my sobriety lost in the season than United winning the league.
Well,
like, I would love
to be fair, you had us getting relegated at the start of the year, so anything can happen.
But I am a master of doom. Right? It's the best way to be. That way you can never be disappointed. You can only be happy when the worst doesn't happen. I think realistically for United this season, a strong top 4 finish, not where they're trying to get top 4 last couple of games, where you're looking at a team going, okay, that's a team that's ready to challenge for the title. That's when you know, whenever they'll finish a strong second, right? And I know they did that under when COVID happened, but I'm talking about not a season where they're coming from behind constantly, where they've really only got one way to win. I'm talking about where, you know, they've got routine wins where, you know, if they lose, they don't go on a losing streak of 4, 5, 6 defeats. They lose, they win the next one. I think for United, that's when I think they'll be in a title race. It'll also require City getting a bit weaker. Like if you look at all the great eras when they came to an end, part of the reason why they came to an end is because they got weaker. And football is in danger of not having those cycles anymore because of the massive amount of wealth of the top teams have, where they're now oblivious to these cycles. You know, look at Bayern Munich. That's a concern. And so you could realistically have a situation where some top team dominates for 30, 40 years. And that's not good for football, because the wealth gap is just too big for anyone to realistically catch over a 38-game season. Yes, you can beat them on a one-off, you can beat them in an FA Cup, you can beat them in, but to catch them over a 38-game season, probability completely changes. So I think United, we've been here before, we've won 4 games, and we all want to get carried away. But realistically, I think for United, if United finish second this season, which I do think second is up for grabs, right? I think that when I look at everything outside of City, that second is up for grabs. So if they finish second, a strong second, where they were within maybe 10 points of City, I think that'd be an unbelievable season.
Well, it's true. I think we're going to win the league. We've seen it all. We've won a lot. Let's do it. Why not?
Love it.
We'll end on that.
We'll leave it there, folks. Thanks as always for all the downloads, likes, retweets, all the love. I hope your mental, physical health is all wonderful. I know these are tough times for everyone right now. Trust me, we're all feeling it. I hope you're okay. And thanks for all the love and thanks for all the messages. And I hope this reaches you safe and sound. Colm, all the best, mate.
Have a good one, mate. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, pal.